Hello and welcome to Something Special from MinnMax. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Kyle Hilliard.
Hello.
Hello. This is a video, as you're probably seeing on YouTube. If you'd like the audio version, you can unlock the audio version by supporting us on Patreon. You can check it out, patreon.com/MinnMax.
2’s.
Good job. But it's not just us talking about how much we love Valve and Valve's unreleased projects. We have a very informed person to join us here over Skype. We have Tristan Halcomb from Lunchhouse Software. Welcome, Tristan.
How's it going?
Real good. Okay, for years now, Kyle and I have been obsessed with f-stop.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's so simple. It's just a classic mystery box, right? Of just like, hey, there's a little tease. I believe it came from Jeff Keighley's final hours of Portal 2 about like how Valve was experimenting with an early version, early design possibilities for Portal 2 and something called f-stop, which we can't go into now. And for years, we've been talking about it and wondering what the hell was Valve's f-stop idea?
Daily almost. I
That's
think
right.
I'd say, what is f-stop?
And I'd say, stop texting me, you maniac. And then, Tristan, you come around and just released this YouTube video saying, hey, here's Valve's f-stop. We'll be releasing a series of documentaries showcasing exactly what this thing is. We're flabbergasted. What is this? How is this? Who are you? What is this all about?
stand for? So many questions.
Okay, can you give any backstory to who you are, what this project is, how the whole thing came about?
Yeah, sure. So I think it really starts back at its core back in 2016. They were hosting a convention called Steam Dev Days. And so me and a few friends of mine flew out to Washington, and we met up with Jeep Barnett, who was one of the lead programmers on Portal. And we just toured around the convention and everything. And at one point, we had all gone back to Valve HQ, and we're asking him some questions and everything. And at one point, I had him sit down and play a game that I was working on titled Punt. And at that point, it was based off a version of the source engine called Alien Swarm. So it was based off that public source code. And so I was talking to him. I'm like, hey, I'd really like to be able to base this off Portal 2 so I can get the full engine access and increase the graphical fidelity. And so he set me up with a contact, and after a few months, I had a license to the Portal 2 code.
Okay, hang on a second. So what you're able to use publicly, you couldn't have the fidelity that you could have if you're actually using the actual Portal 2 source code?
Yes, because publicly they don't give you access to the full engine. They just give you the game code, but not really much of the back end.
Okay, so, I mean... So you're working on Punt. Had you released games that Valve was aware of before, or is this really just coming in cold and saying, hey, we're working on this game, I hope you guys are cool?
Coming cold entirely. I think it was mostly just because he did play the game himself, and he, from what I experienced, he seemed to have liked it. So
yeah, that's absurd. Okay, so they say, hey, here's the Portal 2 source code. They send that over Google Drive. How do they deliver that to you?
They have a proprietary server that you just download the things from.
Okay, you have to solve a series of physics puzzles in order to access that, I assume.
Definitely. So all the f-stop stuff was actually stripped out for the most part, but we were seeing references here and there to small little things, and it wasn't until earlier in 2019 that we got our hands on Left 4 Dead code base that we started seeing the rest of it. And so we saw it and we're like, hey, let's try to get this working. And so we did, and we emailed Valve with the video of it. We're like, hey, we got this working. Can we show it off? And so after some emails back and forth, they said we can share our work with the world, essentially.
Wow.
That's mind-boggling. It's like, it goes back to the classic Valve conundrum of, are they the most open company in the world or the most closed company in the world? I don't know after all this time. Which direction are you leaning at this point, Tristan?
Definitely both.
Okay.
You start the first word definitely made me think you were leaning in a specific direction, but then you tricked us.
It's a weird thing because, I mean, they had seen this footage before, or are you like taking the mechanics from the source code and kind of adding onto it and creating your own environments? Or is it just like you're reconstructing a tech demo that they had made years and years ago?
So the only thing we actually had whatsoever was the code and a few UI textures. So aside from that, everything we had to recreate ourselves.
Were you familiar with the f-stop, the legend of the f-stop when you were going through the code?
I was familiar with a few things of it, but honestly, I didn't know what exactly it was until I booted up the game and I had it working.
Interesting. You know? Well, I mean, that's we were all in the same position. Like, I had no idea what it was. All we knew as just outside consumers was it was a mechanic that Valve liked that they decided to pocket to do something with in the future. And that's all we knew about it for years.
They said to do something with Lunch House software in the future.
That's right.
It's very confusing at the time. So what is f-stop then?
So at its core, it's a mechanic around taking pictures of objects and then rescaling them to solve puzzles in your environment. And while that may seem simple on the surface, if you take the fans that we showed off in the video, for example, or balloons, you're not just scaling up that item, you're scaling up its force or the things it can do. So if you make a balloon huge, it can lift more weight than it ordinarily could by itself, or the fan could push you up higher than it ordinarily could.
Right.
And so it has a lot more depth to it than you initially think.
Yeah, that's so confusing. Okay, so did you find a lot of other references to scrapped ideas within the Portal 2 source code, or was f-stop the main nugget here?
F-stop was definitely the main thing. Although, to be entirely honest, there's nothing really much that hasn't been discussed publicly. It's just mostly seeing it there is the main thing. So, for example, at one point they had this deathmatch mode in Portal 2 called Hot Potato. And so you would just be, every player would have their own portal gun, and you'd be throwing this cube around trying to explode other players.
Huh. That's so fun. And you say they have mentioned that publicly?
There's screenshots online, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Do you have that up and running? You're going to be showing that off as well?
I do not have that up and running because that was not part of f-stop, although I guess I could if I really wanted to.
That's absurd. Okay, so what is the nature... Like, what do you think Valve is getting out of letting you release YouTube videos showing off this mechanic?
To be entirely honest, I think it's something that they don't plan on returning to.
Yeah.
And the real issue is it's just there's been so much conflict internally as far as where to take it. So there's a whole a general consensus that while they were making the game, they're like, oh, well, we're trying to make a Portal 2 without portals. And that was a main portion of it. Although it's also just because it's difficult to not only design levels for it, but it's just a lot of people didn't really know where to take it because people were very conflicted on the mechanic itself. So playtesters would give them feedback, and they just say things like, "Oh, where's GLaDOS? Where's the portals and all of this?" And it kind of got to them, from what I understand, really.
So they just want to be done with it. And it's like, well, it'd be fun to show this off in some way. You guys seem like good guys. We like your upcoming game Punt, so have at it.
From what I understand, yeah. But as far as I'm aware, they kind of just sat there spinning their wheels for a while with the project until eventually they stepped in like, nope, we're making something more controlled, more streamlined, and that's how Portal 2 came to be.
Yeah, for sure. That's wild. Okay, there's also a tidbit that I'm very interested in. When you said that you got the Portal 2 source code, then you went back and got the Left 4 Dead source code. What's the reasoning for going back to get Left 4 Dead?
Just various engine improvements, nothing too crazy.
Oh, okay. So you're not secretly working on Left 4 Dead 3 or anything?
I wish.
Okay. Anything interesting in the Left 4 Dead source code you didn't imagine? Because that's going back to Turtle Rock then, right?
Yes. Well, Left 4 Dead 1 is Turtle Rock. Left 4 Dead 2 is Valve entirely.
Right.
And I have Left 4 Dead 2, not Left 4 Dead 1.
Okay.
But there's nothing so much interesting in the Left 4 Dead source code other than Valve has a tendency to take code from previous games and kind of just leave it in their new games. And so, for example, with Half-Life Alyx coming out, they're not releasing the source code for this, as they usually do with their SDKs. So I have a strong suspicion that there's just tons of scrapped games just lying around in that code for Half-Life Alyx.
Oh my god. And is there any way, do you expect when Half-Life Alyx comes out, people will re-engineer things? Like, I'm very naive. Is there a way to pull pieces out even if they don't give the raw source code?
Not easily whatsoever, no.
Well, the internet's not known for giving up on challenges.
Yeah, I really haven't seen any example of that. The best thing I've seen is like, the decompiles for Super Mario 64 and stuff like that. But I haven't really seen anyone do it for something like a Valve game.
Right. It's so confusing. How did it feel when they just actually carried through with it and sent you everything?
So I'm part of the source engine development community as a whole. So I know quite a few people who have access to similar code bases. Although it is very, I guess, just it's a really weird feeling just to have a company like that work with you that closely. You know?
It's just like, okay, you can do your archaeological research on our stuff. We're too busy working on everything else. Here, have at it. It's an insane gift.
I mean, if I'm being entirely honest, like us having Left 4 Dead source code, like they have made attempts to strip it out, thereafter. But we had an older version of it. But we approached them after we got it working, and that's when they really knew that what we were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
So they totally could have just gone, no, don't show it off, like don't do anything with it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I see from their perspective, it's kind of like this f-stop wouldn't exist otherwise, right? Like maybe that's how they're kind of looking at it. It's like, well, we could do nothing with it, or we could have you guys do something cool with it,
Yeah. Did you?
Well,
go ahead.
Oh no. So from what I understand, the last time they did anything with f-stop was 2018, and from the
that's more recent than I expected.
The rumblings I've heard, they were trying to do it in VR. But I don't really think it's a mechanic that would work out too well in VR. So I think they kind of just shelved it and have given up for the most part.
Do you think it was for one of those early attempts at a Half-Life project in VR, or do you think it was a Portal game in VR?
I definitely think they were trying to just rehash f-stop as a VR experience, as one of their upcoming VR titles.
Oh, gotcha. Interesting. Okay, it's been that prominent. Yeah, that's absurdly recent. I thought it was all just in the wasteland of history here. Have you checked out that game Superliminal, by the way? Came out on PC last year.
Yeah, funny story about that. They know things they shouldn't.
What? What do you mean?
So, for example, that dollhouse, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's a section in the game where there's this dollhouse, and you scale it up and you're able to step inside of it. That's an f-stop concept.
Oh, like one for one? A dollhouse idea?
One for one.
So what do you make of that? Do you think they just heard some rumblings as well about what f-stop was, or do they also have access to the source code?
I have heard rumors that they used to be source engine developers.
Oh, interesting. So they would have the same insight.
From what I've heard, yes.
Okay. Do you like the game, or do you see it as a weird competition for your documentary project here with f-stop?
I wanted to like the game. It's just I saw a lot of flaws in the level design. I couldn't enjoy it.
Sure.
It's hard when you're that close to something.
Yeah. So what is the release plan for Exposure, which is just going to be a series of YouTube videos then, or is it going to be? Are you ever going to make something playable and release it?
I would love to, although for right now that's not on the cards. As far as the videos go, we are planning on releasing more. However, it's not our main priority currently. We're trying to finish up our main title, Punt.
Yeah.
Which we're expecting to release later this year, hopefully around early summerish. And then after that, we're planning on following up with the next part of the Exposure series.
Sweet. How's Punt coming along?
Going pretty well. There's been multiple iterations of the game, and we're the farthest along that we've ever really been as far as it goes, and we have a decent plan on how to continue and really wrap things up. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, nice. Are you hoping that Valve secretly brings you guys on board to be the core of Portal 3 then?
Unfortunately, I don't think of Portal 3 is in the cards anytime soon, or really ever.
Don't tell us that.
Yeah,
just lie to us, man.
Yeah, they have Wolpaw back. What more do they need?
What's he doing? Writing jokes for Alex? He can do that in like 2 days.
Oh, yeah.
I think if they were to return to the world of Portal whatsoever, it would not be focused on Shell nor Portals. It would be something entirely new.
Yeah, for sure. What have you learned about Valve? I assume you're a fan going into this, making a game inspired by Portal in some ways.
I've learned that Valve has done a lot of things they've just not finished.
That's that openness question, because it's always like they're the chocolate factory game developer. Like, what's going on in there? What are they working on? What kind of stuff have they just shelved because they don't know what to do with it exactly?
But instead, you get to open the doors and see that it's just like a bunch of limbs for Oompa Loompas, like spread as far as the eye can see, and now you're trying to piece them back together.
Yeah.
Do you want to show off more scrapped ideas outside of f-stop?
I may, although to be entirely honest, there's not all that much outside of f-stop, because f-stop was, of course, the main meat and potatoes of what was scrapped from Portal 2.
Yeah.
Although there was various things scrapped from Portal 2, like the adhesion gel and trying to think, the hover turrets and stuff like that. But that's pretty well known.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm curious, for Exposure, which is the documentary series, what will those future episodes look like? Is it going to be like you guys showing off sample gameplay of how mechanics could work, or are you just kind of explaining how you pieced together the code? Like, what does the next episode even look like?
So the main idea for the series as a whole is it's going to be segments of, what we feel f-stop could have been. So we're going to essentially create an environment or a level that we feel could have been part of the actual game. And so it'll just be a playthrough of that section.
Okay, so you're kind of designing levels you're coming up with your own puzzles and just sort of imagining a world where this game fully exists.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Did you have a sense of how much of a struggle it was within Valve to allow you guys to do this? Was it just as simple as emails back and forth, and eventually they're like, yeah? Or were you privy to people being like, do not give our source code to people out of house?
We already had the source code. It was just mostly a matter of people actually giving permission to show it off. As far as us getting permission, it was fairly easy, although I have heard some people were a little bit surprised.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Do you know if it went all the way to the top? Did you any communication from Gabe?
I have not had any communication from Gabe, but I have heard rumors.
That he was pro or con?
That he was just extremely surprised.
Okay. All right.
Interesting. Well, hey, do you want to give a plug for Punt and where people can go to learn more about Exposure?
Yeah. So on our website, it's exposure.lunchhouse.software, and right there you'll be able to see the various Exposure-related content and the first part of the YouTube series. And then as far as Punt goes, we're planning on releasing that on Steam later this year, and it'll be entirely free.
Entirely free? What are you maniacs doing over there?
Well, at least for now. We are in talks with Valve as far as potentially replacing the physics system and trying to make it paid. But at least for now, I think it's going to be free.
How are you supported? How are you doing this? Who are you?
As much as I would like it to be my full-time job, it's currently just a side project for me, really.
Okay.
So,
do you work in other games? Do you want to talk about your history in the industry?
Honestly, I don't have much of a history. I just, I'm just some random indie developer for the most part.
Who we can establish is very good at writing convincing emails.
I hope so.
I'm really looking forward to seeing not only Punt, but then also what the future holds for you guys and the channel overall, because we'll be watching every episode over here.
For sure.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Cool. Hey, thanks so much for your time, Tristan.
No, and I guess, I might as well, break the news. So the next episode of Exposure, whenever it does come out, will focus on the mannequins that were supposed to be in the game.
The mannequins?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, if you go to the Exposure website, you have a few images of those, right? These strange mannequins. Interesting.
Are they funny?
I think it's the complete opposite of that spectrum.
Okay.
All right. That sounds
Quite the
awesome.
tease.
I love it. Well, we'll look forward to it, man. Well, thanks so much for watching and listening to this bonus thing from MinnMax. Again, you can listen to the audio version of this, re-listen to it if you want to, or check out audio versions for all the other shows, like The Deepest Dive, which is our community game club, where we take the deepest dive into a specific game. Right now we're doing Chrono Trigger, having a blast with that, or Max Spoilers, where we spoil big games, big movies, those types of discussions, and other fun bonus stuff, conversations. So check out patreon.com/MinnMax2Ns for even more info there. All right, thanks so much, everybody. Bye. From in-depth game club discussions with the community to live streams every single week, weekly podcasts, exclusive videos, everything under the sun is at patreon.com/MinnMax2Ns. Check it out, everybody.